Before we had highways, before we had well-paved roads, and before carts were drawn by horses, there were paths. These paths were not planned or constructed, but formed slowly over time by the consistent footsteps of those who walked them. In ancient times, people walked because they had to, whether to gather food, water, or trade goods. The ground soft under their feet, and the earth began to form a path, a road, though no one called it that yet. The earliest roads weren't made of stone or gravel. They were simply dirt flattened from repeated use. The people who used them did so without thinking, walking from one place to another. There was no need for signs or maps. The road was simply the way from here to there. And the more it was used, the more defined it became, though still unremarkable. In Mesopotamia, around 4000 BCE, people began to walk along certain tracks, worn smooth by time. These paths often led to water, the most precious resource in the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. People would gather there, drink, and then continue on their way. The roads were humble, a simple mark on the earth, a sign of human movement, nothing more. Yet, they were the foundation of something far greater to come. As people began to build villages and towns, the paths became more deliberate. They weren't just used for going to water anymore. They connected settlements, allowing trade and communication, yet these early roads were still simple. They were not straight lines or engineered paths. They meandered and twisted, following the contours of the land. These roads were made for walking, not speed. In the Indus Valley, around the same time, a different kind of road began to take shape. The people there built roads out of bricks, carefully laid one by one. The bricks were fired to make them strong, but the roads were still not straight, not perfectly paved. They were made by hand, a quiet and laborious process, without the rush of modern construction. The roads were built with patience, one small piece at a time. Over in Egypt, by the Nile, the roads weren't made of bricks. They were made of sand and earth, swept by the desert winds. The people there walked through the dust, over paths that had been formed by the passing of countless others. The roads were not meant for speed or comfort, but simply for movement. The caravans that traveled these roads carried goods, but they carried no hurry. As time passed, roads began to connect more places, stretching across vast areas, yet they remained simple. They were not smooth or perfect. They were rough, uneven, and often muddy. But they were still roads, and they were still used. Slowly, quietly, the idea of a road began to spread. People walked, carried by their feet, and the earth beneath them continued to change. The Romans, many centuries later, would build roads that were far more advanced. But for now, we're still in the age of the simple road, the road formed not by design, but by habit. These early roads did not have names or plans. They were simply there, marking the way from one place to another. People did not know it, but these roads were the foundation of something much bigger, something that would one day stretch across continents. In these early times, the roads were not much to look at. They were not grand or impressive. They were just dirt, just earth. But they had purpose. They connected people, even if it was just a handful of people at a time. They were used by traders, travelers, and herders, each taking their time, each moving at their own pace. No one was in a hurry because there was no need to be. These roads were a quiet, unhurried part of life. They didn't demand anything of you except that you follow them, that you walk. In this way, they were timeless. They didn't require any special knowledge to use. They simply existed, and you could follow them, step by step, day by day. They were roads meant for walking, and that was enough. Now, perhaps you're beginning to feel a bit sleepy. Perhaps the slow rhythm of the story, the steady pace of time, has begun to relax you. Maybe your thoughts are wandering, just like the roads in the story. There's no need to hurry now. Just let the road continue, as it always has, slowly, endlessly. We could talk more about roads, about how they grew into the highways and streets we know today. But for now, let's pause. The road has no rush. It will wait for us to continue, just as it waits for the travelers who come after. So for now, let the story settle into the quiet space of your mind. The road will still be there when you're ready to walk again. As we continue our journey down the winding roads of time, the paths grow slightly more defined. The first roads were not built for speed or efficiency. They were not even built for comfort. They were built for necessity. People had to travel from one place to another. And so they walked, their feet pressing into the earth, creating a subtle imprint of their passage. The earth did not mind. It simply accepted the weight of their steps, slowly bending to accommodate them. These early roads were not straight lines. They followed the natural contours of the land. They curved around trees and over hills, and sometimes they would disappear into thick forests, only to reappear again further down the way. The idea of a straight road, one that cut through the landscape with sharp precision, had not yet been conceived. For now, the road simply followed the easiest path, the one that required the least resistance. And yet, even in their simplicity, these roads served a great purpose. They connected people. They connected communities. They allowed trade to happen, even if it was slow. They allowed ideas to travel, even if it was a long, arduous journey. And slowly but surely, these humble roads began to expand. They began to link distant villages, and over time, the networks of roads grew, stretching further and further. In ancient Egypt, the roads were not wide, nor were they paved in any formal way. The Egyptians, known for their grand monuments and advanced engineering, did not focus on perfecting their roads. Instead, they relied on the natural paths that had formed over centuries. The sand and dust would settle in patterns, and the paths would become more pronounced with each passing year. These roads were simple, yet effective. They were used by traders and travelers, by farmers bringing their goods to market, by workers journeying to the grand construction sites along the Nile. There was no rush in Egypt. The roads, like the people, moved slowly, taking their time to get from one place to the next. The desert wind would sweep across the land, erasing traces of footsteps and creating new patterns in the sand. And yet the road remained. It was not concerned with time, and neither were the people who walked it. In the Indus Valley, there was a different approach. The roads were not formed by the natural passage of feet. They were carefully constructed, built with bricks that were fired in kilns to ensure their durability. These roads were more deliberate, more planned, but even so, they were not straight. They still followed the natural flow of the land, bending around hills and valleys. The bricks were laid one by one, each fitting into the next, creating a surface that was rough but functional. The roads were built for a purpose, to connect the cities, to bring goods from one place to another. The people of the Indus Valley, like those in Egypt and Mesopotamia, did not rush. They understood the value of patience. Building a road was not a quick task. It took time, effort, and care. But once the roads were in place, they provided a new way of moving, a way of connecting that had not existed before. It was a slow process, but one that had lasting effects. Meanwhile, in Mesopotamia, the roads continued to evolve. They were still simple, still just dirt paths that had been worn smooth by the feet of countless travelers. But the people of Mesopotamia were learning. They began to improve the roads, to make them more usable. They started to create paths that were wider, paths that could accommodate the carts and animals that were becoming more common. The roads were still basic, but they were slowly being refined. In some places, the roads began to take on a more formal shape. In the city of Ur, for example, the streets were laid out in a grid pattern, a sign of early urban planning. The roads in Ur were not perfect, but they were more organized. The people of Ur understood that a good road could bring prosperity. It could allow goods to be transported more efficiently, and it could bring people together. The roads in Ur were small steps toward the roads we know today. In ancient Greece and Rome, the concept of the road began to change. The Romans, in particular, began to build roads that were far more sophisticated than anything that had come before. These roads were straight, wide, and made with layers of materials to ensure their durability. The Romans did not just build roads for the sake of travel, they built roads for the empire. Their roads were designed to move armies quickly and efficiently, to connect far-flung provinces and keep the empire united. The Romans understood that a good road was essential for the success of their empire. They built roads that were straight and strong, roads that would last for centuries. They built roads that could withstand the weight of heavy carts and the march of soldiers. The roads they built were a marvel of engineering, and they would set the standard for roads for many centuries to come. But even with the Romans, the idea of a road remained simple. It was a path, a way of getting from one place to another. The roads may have been more advanced, but they still served the same purpose as the first paths worn by travelers in Mesopotamia. The road was still about movement, about connection, about bringing people together. It was not about speed or efficiency. It was about travel and about the journey itself. As the centuries passed, the roads grew more complex. They were paved with stones, then asphalt, then concrete. They were widened and straightened. They were built to accommodate cars and trucks, to allow people to move faster and more efficiently. But despite all the changes, the road has remained essentially the same. It is still a path, still a way of getting from one place to another. It is still a symbol of movement, of progress, of connection. Now we can look at the roads that stretch across our world. We can look at the highways and streets, the bridges and tunnels, and see how far we've come from those first simple paths. But even as the roads have evolved, they have not lost their original purpose. They are still the quiet, steady connectors of our world, still the means by which we travel, still the foundation of the connections we make. As you lie here, listening to the story of the roads, think of the many paths that have come before us. Think of the people who walked those paths, who took their time, who moved slowly, just as we do now. There is no rush. There is no hurry. The road is there, waiting for you to walk it. The journey is not about getting to the end. It is about being on the road, step by step, moment by moment. The journey through time continues slowly. Just as the first roads were built, one step at a time, so too does our story unfold slowly. We move from one moment to the next, not in a hurry, but with purpose. Just like the roads, the story doesn't rush. It is meant to be savored, not hurried. The roads that were first made by the ancient people were paths of necessity. They were not roads to conquer the world. They were roads to help people get from one place to another. The need for such roads was simple, but the impact they would have on history was anything but. In the early days of civilization, when roads were still primitive and rough, the people who used them knew they were doing something important. They were connecting the dots in a larger story. The road was not just a physical path, it was a bridge between worlds. It connected people, brought them together, and allowed for exchange, whether of goods, ideas, or cultures. Slowly, step by step, the people who walked these roads learned something important. They learned the value of movement, of travel, of seeing the world beyond their own village or town. As we move further through time, the roads continue to evolve. They become more organized, more structured, and more essential to daily life. In ancient Rome, for example, the roads were designed not just for the movement of people, but for the movement of the Roman army. The Romans built their roads with precision, using a layer system that included stones, gravel, and sand. These roads were built to last, and they did. Some of the Roman roads still exist today, a testament to their engineering skill. The Romans built roads to link the vast stretches of their empire, to ensure their army could march quickly and efficiently from one province to the next. But the roads they built were not only for soldiers, they were also used for trade, for communication, and for the movement of goods and services. The Romans understood that a strong road network was the foundation of their empire. It allowed them to control their territory, to communicate across vast distances, and to keep the people of their empire connected. But even in Rome, the road was not the perfect, smooth surface we think of today. The Roman roads were often rough, uneven, and full of potholes. The layers of stone and gravel, though sturdy, were not always smooth. And yet, the roads served their purpose. They allowed for the movement of armies and people, and that was enough. The road was still a simple thing, even in the grandeur of the Roman Empire. After the fall of the Roman Empire, the roads began to deteriorate. Without the centralized power of Rome to maintain them, the roads fell into disrepair. The great roads that had once connected the empire became overgrown with weeds, their surfaces eroded by time and neglect. But the need for roads did not disappear. People continued to travel, continued to use the paths that had been worn into the earth, even if they were no longer maintained. In medieval Europe, the roads were once again rudimentary. They were often little more than dirt tracks, worn down by the passage of feet, horses, and carts. The roads in the countryside were especially poor, often impassable in the winter months when they became boggy and flooded. Still, people traveled. They made their way from village to village, often relying on the simplest paths, just as the first travelers had done centuries before. In some places, the roads were nothing more than mud tracks, barely distinguishable from the surrounding earth. During this time, the roads were not just about getting from point A to point B. They were often dangerous, filled with uncertainty. Travelers had to be careful not just of the weather and the terrain, but also of thieves and bandits. The roads were not just for travel. They were also places where people could be ambushed. And yet people continued to walk, to travel, to use the roads because there was no other option. The roads were the lifeline that connected people to each other. Without them, trade could not happen. Without them, communication could not flow. Without them, the world would be a much smaller place. The roads were the veins that carried life through the land. And even though they were often rough and even dangerous, the people who walked them knew they had no choice but to keep going. As we move into the modern era, the road changes once again. The invention of the wheel, the development of carts and wagons, the rise of the automobile, all of these innovations change the way we think about roads. The roads of the modern world are not just for walking anymore. They are built for cars, for trucks, for machines that move quickly and efficiently. The roads are wider, smoother, and better maintained. They are built to accommodate the speed of modern life, the rush of the world. And yet, even with all the advances, the essence of the road has not changed. The road is still a path, a way of getting from one place to another. It is still a connector, still a bridge between places, still a symbol of movement, of change, and of progress. The road is still a place of transition, a place where journeys begin and end. It is still a place where we can pause and reflect, just as the travelers of the past did. Even as we speed down highways and zoom through cities, it is important to remember the slow, quiet paths that came before. The roads of the past were not designed for speed, not designed for efficiency. They were designed for people. They were designed for connection, for movement, for the simple act of getting from one place to another. And as you lie here now, listening to this story, think of all the roads that have come before. Think of the people who walked them, who traveled slowly, who took their time. Think of how those first paths, those humble, simple roads, laid the foundation for everything that came after. Think of how, even in their simplicity, they changed the world. Now we find ourselves in the age of the automobile, the modern roads stretching out before us. But let's pause for a moment to remember that the roads we take today were not always so. The first automobile did not arrive overnight. It came slowly, piece by piece, just as the roads themselves were built one layer at a time. The first roads were not designed for cars. They were designed for walking, for carts, for horses, and later for more primitive wagons. The idea of driving a fast machine over smooth asphalt would have been incomprehensible to the people who first walked these roads. The invention of the automobile, along with its accompanying need for roads, changed everything. No longer were roads just for walking or riding horses. Now, they needed to accommodate machines that could travel faster, with more force, and over greater distances. The roads that had once been rough paths carved by human feet now had to bear the weight of mechanical giants. In the early days of automobiles, the roads were still primitive by today's standards. They were mostly dirt paths, just like the roads of the past. They were often rutted, uneven, and full of potholes, but the automobile was a game changer. It allowed people to travel further, faster, and with more comfort than ever before. The old roads were no longer enough. As the demand for travel grew, so did the need for better roads. The invention of the paved road began to take hold. Asphalt and concrete were introduced, and the world began to transform. New roads were built to meet the demands of a rapidly changing world. These roads were wider, smoother, and more reliable than anything that had come before. They could handle the weight of automobiles and the speed of modern life. The roads of the past, once worn smooth by human feet and carts, were now being replaced by wide, expansive highways designed for speed and efficiency. But even as the roads changed, the essence of the journey remained the same. The road was still a way of connecting places, of connecting people. It was still a bridge between worlds, a way of moving from one place to another. The world had grown faster, but the road was still there, quietly supporting the movement of people, just as it had for centuries. The rise of the automobile also brought with it a new kind of freedom. People could now travel farther without the limitations of horses or footpaths. They could drive to distant cities, visit relatives in far-off towns, and explore new regions with ease. The world seemed to shrink in size as roads stretched across the land, opening up possibilities that had once been unimaginable. But the rise of automobiles also brought challenges. The increased traffic on roads led to congestion, accidents, and the need for even more infrastructure. New roads had to be built, old ones had to be expanded, and safety measures had to be put in place. The automobile had changed the landscape of travel, but it had also introduced new complications that would need to be addressed. And as the automobile became a common part of life, it brought with it a culture of speed. Roads were now designed not just to connect places, but to allow people to move quickly, to get from one place to another in the shortest time possible. The slow, meandering roads of the past were replaced by highways that stretched endlessly, designed for speed and efficiency. The focus was on getting people from point A to point B as quickly as possible, with little concern for the journey itself. But despite all this, the road was still a path. It was still a way of moving, a way of connecting. The speed at which we traveled may have changed, but the road was still the same. It was still a path that connected us to the world, that brought us closer to other people, to other places. It was still a place where stories began, where journeys started. Even as cars sped along these roads, the essence of the road remained unchanged. It was still a quiet place, a place where the rhythm of movement could be felt. Whether traveling slowly on foot or speeding along in a car, the road was still a constant. It was still a place of transition, a place where the past and the future met. It was still a place where we could reflect, where we could think about where we were going and where we had been. In recent years, the advent of technology has introduced new ways of navigating the world. GPS systems now guide us along our journeys, telling us the quickest way to reach our destination. The maps of the past, once drawn by hand, are now digital, available at the touch of a button. The roads themselves have become more sophisticated, with signs, lights, and signals guiding us every step of the way. And yet, despite all these advancements, the road remains fundamentally the same. It is still a path, still a connector, still a bridge between places. As you lie here listening to this story, think about all the roads that have come before us. Think about how each road, each path, each step has brought us to where we are today. Think about the people who walked these roads, who traveled slowly, who took their time. Think about how the road has always been there, quietly waiting for us to take that next step, that next journey. The world may have changed, but the road has remained constant. It is still there, stretching out before us, waiting for us to take that first step. Whether we are walking, driving, or flying, the road is still with us, quietly supporting our journey. It is still a path, a way of moving, a way of connecting. It is still the foundation of our world, still the thing that keeps us connected to each other, to the places we come from, and to the places we are going. So as you drift off to sleep, let the image of the road remain with you. Let it remind you of all the journeys that have come before, and of all the journeys that are yet to come. Let it remind you that no matter where the road takes us, it is always there, quietly supporting us, step by step, mile by mile. The road is still there, just as it has always been. The road continues to stretch out, long and winding, with no clear end in sight. Just as the world has changed, so too have the ways in which we think about the roads we travel on. In the past, roads were mere necessities, simple dirt paths or stone-laid routes, designed only to get people from one place to another. But now, roads are no longer just functional. They have become integral parts of our societies, our economies, and our very identities. They are no longer just connections between distant places. They are now the veins of our modern world. But in all their grandeur, the roads still retain their simplicity. They may be lined with lights, dotted with signs, or encased in lanes of smooth asphalt. But at their core, they remain just paths, just ways to move through the world. And in this simplicity, there is beauty. Each stretch of road is a journey, each curve a moment to reflect, to breathe. Even in the hustle of modern life, we find that the road has its own rhythm, its own pace. It is not the speed at which we travel that matters, but the fact that we travel at all. The road, in its most basic form, is the metaphor for life itself, a journey made one step, 1 mile, one turn at a time. As the world advances and the cars become faster, the roads grow more complex. They widen to accommodate the growing population of vehicles. Highways split and multiply into networks that cover continents. We no longer merely follow a path. We navigate an intricate web of connections, leading us from city to city, from state to state, and even across countries. Each of these highways tells a story, not just of movement, but of ambition and progress. Think about the iconic interstate systems that stretch across the United States, linking coast to coast. They were constructed in the mid-20th century as part of a vision to create a system that could serve both military and civilian purposes. These interstate highways, often large and seemingly endless, stand as monuments to human engineering and foresight. They were not just built for convenience, they were built to connect a vast, sprawling country, to bring people closer together despite their geographical distances. Yet, even as we speed down these roads at high velocity, it's worth considering how each one was carefully thought out, each mile meticulously planned. The engineering required to create these long, straight highways is no small feat. The roads had to be designed to withstand the pressure of millions of vehicles, the toll of climate, and the wear of time. The world we live in today owes much to the foresight of those who saw roads as more than just paths. They saw them as pathways to the future. But not all roads are as grand as these interstate systems. Not all roads are designed for speed or for efficiency. There are still the winding, narrow lanes that traverse quiet rural towns, the twisting mountain paths that lead to places where few dare to venture. These roads are not about getting from one place to another quickly. They are about the journey itself. They are about exploration, about the experience of moving through landscapes that have not been shaped by the hand of man. They offer a slower pace, a chance to truly experience the world around you. Imagine for a moment traveling along these less traveled roads. The landscape is your companion: rolling hills, vast fields, small streams that wind through the land. These roads are not about rushing. They're about pausing, about breathing in the air, about seeing the beauty in the details. The old roads, the forgotten paths, still exist in pockets of the world, waiting for those who are willing to slow down and take in the view. And as we move from one place to another, let's not forget the roads of the past. Roads that were built with the sweat and labor of those who came before us. Roads that were the only means of connecting people to each other. Think of the dusty tracks of the Silk Road, a series of ancient trade routes that spanned across Asia and connected the East with the West. These roads carried more than just goods. They carried ideas, cultures, and traditions that would forever change the course of history. The roads of the Silk Road were not just dirt paths. They were lifelines, linking civilizations that were otherwise isolated from one another. Traders, explorers, and adventurers journeyed along these roads for centuries, each one contributing to the tapestry of human history. They traversed deserts, crossed mountains, and braved the dangers of the unknown, all in search of trade, knowledge, and connection. The roads they followed were not built by modern machinery, but by human ingenuity and perseverance. As we look back on these ancient roads, we see that they were not just means of transportation. They were symbols of human resilience and curiosity. They represent the desire to connect, to understand, and to explore. And even today, in our world of fast cars and superhighways, we can still learn from the past. The roads we travel are more than just pavement. They are reflections of who we are and where we've been. But let's take a step back now. Let's pause for a moment and think about what it would be like to return to the roads of the past. Imagine walking along a quiet, unpaved path, the earth soft beneath your feet, the only sound the rustling of leaves in the breeze. There are no cars, no rush, just the gentle movement of your body through space. These roads, though primitive, had a certain peace to them. There was no pressure to move quickly. The journey was the destination. In a way, we've lost something with the advent of modern roads. While they allow us to travel far and fast, they also come with a sense of urgency, a need to hurry, to be efficient. The slow, meandering roads of the past gave us the time to reflect, to think, and to simply be. Today, we're often so focused on getting to our destination that we forget to enjoy the journey. The roads, once a space for contemplation, have become spaces for productivity, for efficiency. But there's still value in the quiet roads. There's still value in the slow journey. As you listen to this story, think of those roads. Think of the paths that take their time, the ones that wind and twist through the landscape. Think of the people who once traveled them and the stories they carried. These roads, though forgotten by many, are still there, quietly waiting for someone to slow down and rediscover them. As we continue down the road of time, it's important to reflect on the journey we've made thus far. The roads that have carried humanity through centuries of development have not only been physical pathways, they have been symbols of human progress, exploration, and perseverance. From the earliest dirt tracks to the wide paved highways of today, these roads have facilitated the spread of ideas, cultures, and technologies. They have connected disparate worlds, built bridges between civilizations, and, in many ways, shaped the world we know. The first roads, made by the hands of early humans, were more than just simple paths. They were the beginnings of civilization itself. They allowed our ancestors to travel beyond their immediate environment, to trade, to communicate, and to explore new territories. As the need for trade and communication grew, so did the complexity of the roads. The ancient civilizations understood the importance of roads, not only for travel, but for connecting their people and expanding their influence. In ancient Rome, the famous Roman roads were a marvel of engineering. These roads were designed not only for military purposes, but for the ease of trade, communication, and the movement of people. The Roman Empire built an extensive network of roads that stretched across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East, and they did so with an unparalleled attention to detail. The Roman roads were carefully planned, constructed with layers of materials that ensured durability and stability, and designed with remarkable precision. One of the most iconic features of Roman roads was their straightness. The Romans believed in building roads that were direct, that cut through the landscape without unnecessary detours or meandering paths. These roads were a testament to the Roman desire for efficiency, for speed, and for control over the vast territories they ruled. Roman roads were built to last, many of them still visible today, hundreds of years after they were first constructed. Even though the Roman Empire has long since fallen, the roads they built continue to be a vital part of our infrastructure. Their influence can still be seen in the modern road systems that crisscross Europe and beyond. The idea of constructing straight, durable roads was adopted by many subsequent civilizations, and the legacy of Roman engineering lives on in the roads we travel today. But as we look at the Roman roads, it's worth considering the immense labor that went into their construction. The people who built these roads were not engineers or architects, but ordinary laborers who worked tirelessly to shape the land. They dug through mountains, laid stones in precise patterns, and built bridges over rivers, all by hand. These workers, though often overlooked in history, played a crucial role in the development of the road systems that shaped the ancient world. In a way, the roads of the past were built by the hands of the many, not the few. They were the result of collective effort, of communities coming together to create pathways that would serve generations to come. The construction of these roads was a process that took years, even decades, and it required not only physical labor, but a shared vision of what these roads could accomplish. These roads were not just pathways, they were representations of human ingenuity and cooperation. As we move further into the modern age, the roads we travel on become even more complex. The rise of the automobile in the 20th century ushered in a new era of road building. Highways, interstates, and freeways spread across countries, transforming landscapes and economies. The roads were no longer just for walking or riding horses. They were now designed to accommodate the needs of a rapidly changing society. But as the world moved faster, something was lost. The roads, once slow and meandering, were now built for speed. The emphasis shifted from the journey itself to getting from one point to another as quickly as possible. The winding paths that once allowed for quiet reflection were replaced by straight, fast highways designed for maximum efficiency. The slow, deliberate pace of the past gave way to the fast-moving world of the present. Yet, even in this age of speed, there is still room for the quiet roads of the past. They may not be the main thoroughfares of our modern world, but they are still there, hidden in the countryside, nestled between forests, and winding through small towns. These roads offer a slower pace, a chance to reconnect with the land and with ourselves. They remind us that not every journey needs to be fast, that sometimes it's the journey itself that matters, not just the destination. Imagine driving along one of these old winding roads. The trees arch above you, casting dappled shadows on the pavement. The road curves gently, and you can feel the rhythm of the journey as the car glides along. There's no rush, no pressure to hurry. You can take your time, enjoy the scenery, and let your mind wander. It's a journey that's as much about the experience as it is about the destination. There's no GPS guiding you, no time constraints pushing you forward. Just the open road, the fresh air, and the freedom to move at your own pace. In many ways, these old roads are like the memories of the past. They may not be as fast or as efficient as the roads of today, but they carry with them a certain nostalgia, a sense of history, and a connection to something deeper. The roads we travel on are not just paths through the landscape. They are paths through time, connecting us to the generations that came before us and the stories they left behind. Even in our modern world, where we are often obsessed with speed and efficiency, there is still value in slowing down. There's value in taking the time to explore the quiet, winding roads, the ones that lead us away from the hustle and bustle of daily life. These roads offer us a chance to step back, to breathe, and to reflect on the journey we've made and the journey yet to come. As you listen to this story, let your mind wander along these old, quiet roads. Let yourself drift along with the rhythm of the journey, feeling the gentle curve of the road beneath you. There's no need to hurry. There's no rush to reach the end. Just let yourself enjoy the peaceful, unhurried pace of the journey and allow your mind to settle into the calm, slow movement of the road. The journey itself, after all, is as important as the destination. As the story of roads continues, let's take a moment to think about the different kinds of paths we travel on in our own lives. Just as there are roads that stretch out across the continents, there are also the inner roads we walk each day. Some of these roads are straight and clear, guiding us with a certainty that makes our journey seem easy. Others are more winding, filled with obstacles and uncertainties. The roads of life are not always paved or smooth, and sometimes we find ourselves navigating through the twists and turns of our personal journeys. Much like the physical roads that have been constructed over centuries, the roads we walk on in our own lives have been shaped by the experiences, choices, and encounters we have. The straight paths we follow often represent times of certainty, when our decisions are clear and our goals seem within reach. These are the moments when life feels easy, when the road is wide open ahead of us. But then there are the winding roads, the paths that curve and twist, where the destination is uncertain and the journey feels more difficult. These roads can be challenging, filled with confusion, doubt, or unexpected turns. Sometimes we find ourselves lost, unsure of where to go next, much like travelers in the past who wandered down forgotten paths without a map to guide them. Yet there's a certain beauty in these winding roads. They encourage us to slow down and think. They ask us to take our time, to consider each step we take, and to reflect on the choices we've made. Just as the slow, meandering roads of history carried travelers on long, thoughtful journeys, the winding paths of our lives offer the same opportunity for reflection. These roads, while more difficult to navigate, help us grow and learn about ourselves in ways that the straight roads never could. We can take inspiration from these historical roads, those paths that have withstood the test of time and continued to serve their purpose, even when the world around them changed. Think about the ancient trade routes that crisscrossed deserts, mountains, and forests. The travelers who journeyed along them faced immense challenges. The roads were not easy, the weather could be harsh, and the dangers were many. Yet these paths brought people together, created networks of trade, and allowed cultures to exchange goods, ideas, and traditions. In many ways, the roads of today serve the same purpose, though perhaps not in the same way. The interstates and highways may be smoother, faster, and more efficient, but they still connect us to each other. These modern roads allow us to meet new people, experience new places, and share in the richness of the world. They are symbols of connection, of unity, much like the roads of ancient times. Yet, even in our fast-paced, modern world, it's important to remember that not all roads mean to be fast. Sometimes it's the slower roads that hold the most value. In today's society, where everything is constantly moving and the pressure to keep up is overwhelming, The slower, quieter roads offer a much-needed respite. These roads allow us to step back, to take our time, and to appreciate the world around us. They offer us the opportunity to breathe, to think, and to be present in the moment. Consider for a moment the old country lanes, the paths that wind through quiet villages and peaceful forests. These roads are not built for speed, but for reflection. They are the places where people go to escape the rush of daily life. When you travel along these roads, there's no urgency, no need to rush. It's just you and the landscape, moving at a pace that allows you to truly see the world around you. These slower roads are often the ones that carry the most meaning. They take us through places of natural beauty, places that remind us of the simplicity and peace that can be found when we step away from the busyness of life. The sound of birds singing, the rustle of leaves in the wind, the feeling of the earth beneath your feet, these are the things that make these roads special. They are not about getting somewhere quickly, but about experiencing the journey itself. The beauty of these roads lies in their quietness. In a world that is constantly moving, these roads offer a sanctuary of stillness. They allow us to connect with the natural world, to experience life at a slower pace. It is on these roads that we find the time to reflect, to think, and to simply be. The road may not lead to a destination as grand as a bustling city or a popular tourist spot, but it leads to something just as valuable: inner peace. Imagine yourself walking along one of these quiet paths. The road stretches out before you, winding through tall trees and past flowing streams. The only sounds are the soft rustle of the leaves and the distant chirping of birds. As you walk, you feel a sense of calm wash over you. The world feels quieter here, or peaceful. There's no rush, no deadline, no pressure. Just the road, the sky, and the earth beneath your feet. This is the kind of road that invites you to slow down and take a deep breath. And as we reflect on these roads, we can think about how they connect us not just to the world around us, but to the people who have walked them before us. The history of the roads is intertwined with the stories of those who traveled them. The roads we walk today are built on the foundations laid by generations before us. Their footprints are still there, etched into the earth, guiding us on our own journeys. These old roads, though no longer used by the majority of travelers, continue to tell their stories. They remind us of the past, of the people who built them, and of the experiences they held. Even though the world has changed, these roads still carry the weight of history, of memories, of lessons learned. They are reminders that no matter how fast the world moves, there is always value in slowing down and remembering where we came from. As you journey along the roads of your own life, take a moment to appreciate the quiet ones. Take the time to wander down the paths that aren't as fast or as direct. These roads may not lead to the destinations you expect, but they may offer something just as important: the opportunity to pause, to reflect, and to find peace in the journey itself.